I think digital media is a horrible, frightening, wonderful, unavoidable reality. And I can't get my head around it, and I suspect that most people I know can't get their heads around it. It's consuming every decision that has ever been made in the past. And I guess museums are caught in the middle of that. And because they have to show things to people, and because they're a relatively contained space, they have the chance to be in the forefront of it with things like augmented reality, pointing your phone at exhibits and being able to get the whole history of the exhibit on your phone. You could never do that before. I recall years ago, I went to Gettysburg, and Gettysburg is a huge area where they had this incredible civil war. You don't know that you're in that area, and they were giving out, this must have been 30, 40 years ago, they were giving out speakerphones. You could press something, and then they said, you are on a particular point. If you turn to the left, you can see where Jeb Stuart's cavalry was coming. And you look out, and then you heard a sound of the horses. That was the early stages. Now you put a headset on, you don't have to go to Gettysburg. You go to a museum, you go into a small corner, and you're in Gettysburg. And you don't just have it with that basic stuff that I saw 30 years ago. You're immersed in it. You can be fighting it in a certain way. So there's a mixture now of traditional media and new frontier media, Game of Thrones. You're actually part of the battle. And I think museums have that capacity to harness that. And I think they also have, the good ones have funds, and they're the kind of place where the people who are developing this new media, they're looking for outlets. So they see museums as a potential place for doing this. So that's the one point. Now, on the bigger picture, I think it's changing. I think the new media is changing politics as we know it. It's changing society as we know it. And the obvious example is Donald Trump, where you have the most liberally thinking society in the world, which proclaims democracy as a basic force of its existence, and the democracy is being completely controlled by big money on the one hand, by polarized politics, and by the use of Facebook and targeted advertising. And on the one hand, it's fantastic to see it happening. I'm a student of politics. On the other hand, it's incredibly frightening that a man so ill-prepared for being the most powerful man in the world with the finger on the nuclear button and giving out all of those values that we've all looked to America for, and we saw in Barack Obama, suddenly it's reversed in 6 months. That's a huge amount of that is the new media. Now, in my world, which is the world of climate change, and the change in the way that society deals with its economy and deals with its energy, those forces are very dangerous, because the world came together for 5 years between 2010 and 2015, made a lot of compromise and reached an agreement that would take us through till 2030, 2050. And this guy comes in and says, well, I don't like that. We didn't do well enough. Finished. That's new media, changing things which have been painstakingly put together. Brexit is another example. A stupid question that should never have been asked of a country with a simple answer, very narrow consequences, very narrow decision, and suddenly you have 40 years of painstakingly put collaboration torn asunder without anything in its place. So it's a very dangerous phenomenon, to be honest with you. Museums are just a small piece of this, but they can give a focus to it. That's why we wanted to do the Climate Award with leading cultural destinations. Because if we could bring that factor into play, and if, as I believe, leading cultural destinations is an entrepreneurial activity which has caught the wave, we wanted to be there. And because Florian's a good guy to work with.